to my queer little bookish universe. This is Anna from Black Haired Tree, and today we are diving into my March reads. It was actually a really good reading month. I have 5 books to share with you. But first, we're setting up my March cover page, which is chapter 3 in my ongoing story about the 2 princes. I've been trying to elevate my spreads a bit lately, testing out new methods and materials. I got this applicator which will allow me to use ink stamps to bring a vintage feel to my pages without using torn paper. After ink staining this page, I can say that this applicator isn't very good, but it was the only one my local art supply store carried. I like the effect though, so I'm going to order another type. Chapter 3 takes place the day after the masquerade, where the princess shared a moment and an almost kiss. To celebrate the arrival of the Fae envoy, a royal hunting party is arranged. And there the human prince recognizes the enigmatic stranger who completely bewitched him the night before. So yes, the air between them is very much charged. To get the woodland hunting aesthetic, I'm decorating the page with leaves and branches. I start by outlining vines with a fine liner because I don't have any suitable stickers or rub-ons for this. But I've been adding more hand-drawn elements to my journal this year than previous years, and I like it. Then I go in with a dark sepia fine liner just to soften things a bit before coloring everything with Tombow brush pens. I start with a lighter shade of green before adding details in a slightly darker shade. The chapter is titled The Royal Hunt, which in hindsight is maybe not my most imaginative title, but I didn't want to disturb the spread by covering it up with something else. When I want to write in a neat serif font like this, I actually write it on my laptop first, screenshot it, transfer it to my phone, and then use an app called DaVinci Eye to map it onto the page. Unfortunately, I also use my phone for filming, which is why it's hard for me to show you that particular process, but it's really useful. I do this a lot with titles and hand-drawn elements because it saves me a lot of time and frustration. And I spend enough time on these spreads, I think I deserve a shortcut or two. Maybe 80% of the reason I chose a hunting theme is this giant stag rub-on that I've been dying to use. So I'm building this spread around this poor fella who may or may not be lying bleeding at the end of the chapter. Maybe the Fae Prince sees it but is in awe of the majestic creature and lets it go. It's open for interpretation. I also tried printing the photos on a different kind of paper today. It's slightly textured, more ivory colored, and when I tear the edges, they get this really nice snapshot feel. Lastly, I am adding some more leafy rub-ons to infuse the spread with that woodsy nature feel. And there we are. Bows drawn and horses restless, they rode beneath the waking sky. Under moss-clad branches and trembling leaves they hunted the stag, the air between them charged with memories of the night before. This might be my favorite chapter so far, but this is where we leave the princess for now. I, for one, am excited to see what they get up to next month. Alright, let's talk books. My first book of March is Love Me Whole by Nicky James. A classic and occasional reread for me. I want to add lots of torn paper scraps to reflect the fragmented nature of the main character. The story is told in first person by Vaughn, who's in his mid-30s. He's a bit stuck in life, so he takes evening classes at the local college, where he meets and is fascinated by the enigmatic Orin. Orin has DID, dissociative identity disorder, and shares his life with 5 other distinct personalities. He's very awkward, with his alters tending to surface at very inconvenient times, usually when he feels uncomfortable or threatened. Some of the other students call him a freak and make fun of him because apparently this is high school. But Vaughn wants to get to know him and learn about his disorder and how he can fit into Orin's complicated life. To do so, he needs to learn to love all of him, every part of Orin's system. It's not an easy journey for any of them, but I wouldn't call it overly angsty. There are moments of self-harm, but they're brief and handled well, because this is Nicky James. It's hinted that Orin's DID likely stems from severe childhood abuse, but this is not explored in any detail. The memories of this are locked away in another part of his system. Orin doesn't remember, nor does he want to. This puts him at odds with the alter Cove, who is the personality who fronted during the abuse. And that creates tension because Orin doesn't want to let Cove out, which only makes things worse. Alongside Orin, we have his 5 alters, who all serve a purpose in Orin's system. We have Reed, a protective jock, Cohen, a social, flamboyant, gay 19-year-old, Cove, the self-destructive one, Theo, the organizer who keeps everything running, and finally Rain, the 5-year-old child Orin never got to be, who loves Batman. In the end, it's not only Vaughn who has to learn to love and get along with all of Orin's alters, but also Orin himself. with warmth, love, strengthening the whole cluster of personalities, Oring finally has the courage to do so. It's a really lovely book. I highly recommend it. And the audiobook, narrated by Adam Gold, is excellent. He really should narrate more in this genre. Next up, a book I've seen recommended a lot, Hidden Scars by Andy Jackson. I was a bit hesitant going in because it seemed dark and angsty, and I tend to shy away from angsty books. I have bouts of anxiety myself, and I don't really need to fuel that. But it popped up on Storytel, so I gave in. This one is dark, so I'm going to ink stain the spread in black and grey, and to contrast it, just a few scraps of torn paper. It's a hurt comfort college hockey romance. Preston is the new star player who was and still is horribly abused by his father. His body is riddled with the literal scars to prove it. Even though he is old enough now to fight back, he doesn't, because he's afraid his father will hurt his little sister instead. His roommate Jeremy senses something is wrong and he wants to help, but Preston is very good at keeping everyone at a distance. I found this amazing fan art by MKH. I'll link to their Instagram below so you can check them out. My heart bled for Preston, and I hated his father with a vengeance. I think he got off way too easy in the end. I would have liked to see him suffer a bit more. But, by the end of this, I was willing to take whatever victory the author would give us. It was quite good, and in the end I enjoyed it. I forgot to write the rating out, but it was 4 stars. Next up, something completely different. An Omegaverse romantic suspense with Mpreg set in contemporary Britain. That's something you don't see every day. If you're unfamiliar with Omegaverse, I'll explain it briefly. It can be done in many different ways, but mainly it's a trope where all characters have a sort of secondary gender, alpha, beta, or omega. This affects their biology, behavior, relationships, things like heat cycles, mating, and built-in social hierarchies. It often includes Mpreg, where male omegas can become pregnant. It's sometimes combined with some sort of shifters, in this case wolf shifters. Anyway, the book is Hammer and Gavel by C.T. Whistle. Don't really get the title, but let's not dwell on that. This one puts a new spin to it because it introduces a fourth gender, Sigma. That's our main character, Oliver, who, as a Sigma, is basically a mix of alpha and omega traits, but is easily mistaken for a beta. Enter his new partner, Lucas, a very attractive alpha whose instincts tell him to claim Lucas, who is not really into that sort of thing. He values his independence. I think Oliver resents being a slave under his omega urges. Since this is a detective novel, there's also a case to solve of omega child trafficking, which I think we can all agree on is terrible. But the case kind of fades into the background, which I think is a bit of a shame. I would have liked to know more about it. It's the first in a series, with book 2 coming out in April. And I will absolutely be reading it because I really enjoyed this world the author created. It actually reminds me a bit of Charlie Adhara's Big Bad Wolf series with the shifter contemporary setting. And then something truly shocking happened. I read a book with my eyes. This happens maybe once a year and is reserved for very special books that are not available in audio. I live on audiobooks while I work, cook, clean, color, set up my reading journal spreads, you name it. But this one doesn't exist in audio, and I'd seen it recommended enough times that I got curious. Beautiful Obsession by V. Eddy. This is the author's first book, and in the foreword they write how this was a story they wrote for their friends to read, but decided to publish it on Kindle because their friends liked it so much. And to be honest, it shows it really needed editing. There are spelling mistakes, grammar issues, random capitalization. Honestly, a basic spell check would have gone a long way. And it's too long. It really could have been tightened. But the way I work is I can appreciate that an author has a story to tell, but maybe not the ability to tell it like a poet. And I really enjoyed the story here. It's a mafia romance, big, strong mafia man who doesn't shy away from violence, and a small, timid younger man who has experienced, you guessed it, trauma. But I mean that cover. This has left him severely hearing impaired and selectively mute. It's very 50 Shades, but without the dom-sub dynamic, more rags and abuse to riches. The trailer raised Lucas, who is just trying to stay above water and get through life despite a horrible past, suddenly finds himself the obsession of a mafia prince with unlimited wealth, who moves him into his penthouse and showers him with riches. Alexander is protective, but not borderline abusively possessive. Although I feel like he may have overreacted in some cases. You maybe not have to kill a guy for breaking Lucas's phone and filling him up. The guy was a bully and a creep, but maybe that's not warrants a death sentence. I don't know. Most of the story revolves around uncovering what happened to make Lucas lose his hearing and his voice, both for us as the reader and for Alexander. And I liked that Lucas doesn't resist the princess treatment too much, but rather he takes the riches Alexander showers him in and rolls with it. And he deserves it after what he's been through. So yes, despite all the issues I listed, I found myself really liking this and I gave it 4 stars. Like I said, I appreciate the fact that the author has a story to tell, although maybe not the ability to deliver it in perfect writing. Sometimes it's nice to just let go of reality and roll with it. And finally, the newest Nicky James novel dropped and I was on it. Penny for your thoughts. For this spread, I printed out 2 full sheets of tiny little coins and I am going to start by cutting them all up. Since that only took 1 second, we are ready to move on to the next part, which is writing out the title and cutting up the letters as well. The letters are a bit too clean and tidy, so I'm going to distress them a bit with brown ink. And I'm doing the same with the for and your words. I start the setup by placing Talas and DM and DM's incredible service dog Echo, since I'm going to need them as anchors for what comes next. By the way, DM also picks up another pet in this one, of the teenager kind. It's very Hazard and Somerset, arrows in the hand. So Nana is turning 93, so they're planning a party for her, which means lots of time spent at her retirement home. And of course, there's a mystery. One of the residents has been scammed out of thousands of dollars, and DM is hired to track down the culprit. There's a lot of chaos management involved concerning the teenager, alongside the usual investigation, and DM gets to meet Talas's mom and stepdad, which gives him a taste of what having a family can really be like, which is honestly very sweet. Stepdad even wants to take DM fishing, it's all very sweet. I think that is what gives him the push to finally deal with his alcoholism, and luckily we know a character that is perfect as his sponsor. This is the final book in the series, and while I would have happily read more, the ending Nicky gives them is sweet and perfectly them. And those were my March reads. If you've made it this far, thank you for spending this time with me. Your comments honestly mean so much. I find so much love and support in them. My goal has always been to bring attention to these amazing authors and books that are perhaps a bit less known to the mainstream public. And next month, we're going to the library with the princess. So make sure to stick around for that. Bye!